Welcome back to Rambling Rabbit. Please make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any subreddit topics you want me to cover, comment them down below. Who knows, your idea might be a future video idea. What is your funniest school story? Story 1. Someone posted a picture of clowns holding guns on Instagram and tagged a school back when killer clowns was a popular thing that said the exact same thing, and the police and everything got involved. School was cancelled for the next 3 days. LMAO. Story 2. These two girls were notorious for fighting one another in 8th grade. One was rather heavy. Well, one day the heavy-set girl screams the other girl's name and starts sprinting down the hall to start a fight. As I'm watching this girl run as fast as she can, and get closer, one of the real quiet kids in class just says, "That's no moon," exactly like Obi-Wan. This was 10 years ago and still remember it from time to time. Story 3. Funniest school story. June time, 2013, the weather was blazing, everyone was eager to go for lunch and sit on the grass outside. Time seemed to be dragging as everyone urged the clock to go faster and the school bell to ring. I was sat in French class behind this quite large, arrogant, chubby guy who always managed to pick on someone in some way or another. But this one particular day he looked rather uncomfortable, shaking his leg up and down, wouldn't stop rocking on his chair. He put his hand up and said he needed to go to the loo, but the teacher insisted he wait until the bell went. Anyway, a few minutes passed, he carried on rocking, and suddenly he sat still, just frozen still, with the most worrying facial expression on his face. The whole class started to fill with the aroma of POO. Or fart. Sure enough, he had let one of the most horrendous smelling farts off. The classroom was boiling due to the summer heat, so this made the smell worse. People starting smelling it, the sound of "ew" and "oh my god, I'm gonna puke" surrounded the room. I was almost heaving. I could taste this horrid smell, let alone have it wafting up my nose. Fast forward a few moments later, the dinner bell rung. Before the teacher could even dismiss us, he was off, jumped up from his chair in the biggest hurry and ran out of the door. I caught a glimpse of the back of his trousers. He must have split them somehow, or maybe when he did this fart. This is when I, and the rest of the classroom, discover it wasn't just a fart. He had followed through. The gray chair he was sitting on now was decorated with a fresh brown POO stain. He had ST himself basically. I can still remember the smell to this day. We rushed out of class desperately to escape this smell, and the sight of POO on the chair, and we see him rushing out of the toilets at the end of the corridor into the principal's office. I am still heaving at this point, so I make the mistake of going into the toilet, and it's there, in the sink. He must have been in a hurry. The school bully who thought he was above everybody else had in fact done a POO in the sink. The smell was overwhelming. I ran outside heaving and trying not to vomit. I understand he could have maybe been poorly, but the sink. Anyway, fast forward to the next day, and there is a school assembly about the discovery in the sink the previous day. Principal is explaining that it's totally unacceptable, as it's the second time it's happened in our school, and how we are human beings, not animals. Safe to say I heard receding footsteps, and there is he, walking out the doors, and was nowhere to be seen for the rest of the day. Or the next 2 days. Passed by him on the Friday on my way to class, asked him nicely, "You feeling better now after the POO incident?" Never heard a nasty comment from him ever again. Story 4. I live in France and I don't know the equivalent of the class I was in, but I was 11 and this girl, let's call her Jen, comes to school with this bag full of dried lavender. My friend, Sasha, then jokingly says, "OMG, it looks like weed," and then Jen cuts open the lavender packets, lays the inside on her table and starts sniffing the shit out of it, and at that exact moment the teacher comes in, and the confusion in her eyes was a priceless reaction. Story 5. Maybe not what you're looking for, but having an awful teacher put me down, telling me that I would fail, only teacher to do so. BTW. When I got my results and could rub my grade in her face was just hilarious to me. Getting a hug from one of my other teachers who told me how proud they were in front of her was just amazing also. Story 6. Pep rally in high school for the basketball team that was doing well, lots of energy, excitement in the stands, cheerleader dances. The team comes out and does their thing, strutting and whatnot. The whole time the vice principal is just standing on the sidelines, scowling with his "get off my lawn" expression that he always wore. Then came the dunk off. They had volunteers from the crowd come out and try to outdo one another with slam dunks and other tricks, all to the roar of the crowd. Then out comes Ricky. Ricky is fairly big dude, always carried himself with this attitude that said he was not to be trifled with. So he carries out to the court a chair, and the crowd kind of settles down a bit wondering what he was going to with this chair. Ricky places it under and to the side of the basketball goal, then gets a running start to leap on it and from there up to the rim, but instead the chair slips out from under him and flies 30 feet across the court while he slams down hard on the court, and the crowd roars with laughter. The vice principal's face turns purple with rage as he runs out to collect the chair and Ricky from up off the floor. Story 7. My group of friends were playing hot potato with a water bottle after lunch. After lunch we sit in the gym waiting for teachers. One of my friends, Alan, has the water bottle, and the timer goes off. He screams "God damn it," and slams the water bottle onto the gym floor so hard the bottle breaks in half and soaks everything within 4 feet. Holy shit, he then had to explain the mess to a teacher. Story 8. So my favorite school story is when I was in my senior year we had that Tony's Pizza and other fake food, so I decided since my stomach was upset for a sub I'll eat fries with hot sauce. I got to my last period class and I sat in the middle of a square of people. My friend Zach was in the back. Noah was to my right, Ryan up front, and an empty desk beside me. So me and my brothers could joke all class period. I decided to have a silent fart tiptoe out, and the moment Zach smelled it he went scooted back and let everyone know I farted, so I'm laughing with tears in my eyes, and Ryan said, "Really?" and scooted up, and Noah went right, and all had covered faces like it was a quarantine zone. Zach got up and started fanning the door. When coach asked what he was doing, Zach said someone boos in their pants and needs to wipe. Best school story ever. Story 9. My two friends and I were 13 and we sneaked in class during the lunchtime break when suddenly we hear the door of the corridor slide wide open. We freaked out and panicked. I fell on my knees. My other friend hid under the table, banged her head BTW, and my third friend panicked and tried sliding on the table but pushed too hard, so she slid down the rows of tables super fast, knocking all the books and pencil cases down. Story 10. A year or two after I left, during a free period, some dudes drove their cars into the building and through the main corridor. I thought it was pretty funny when my brother told me. I don't think the teachers felt the same way though. Story 11. There was a whole bunch of commotion over a bullying incident at my high school whereby several assholes convinced a younger student who wanted to be their friend to tattoo his ass, and ended up writing "poop dick" on him. Shortly after, anyone uttering the phrase "poop dick" was grounds for detention on the spot. So instead, we all referred to the event as feces penis. Story 12. So the tables in my chem class are right next to the sink and I didn't notice the sink was full of water. I placed my backpack next to the sink. It wasn't inside the sink or anything, it was just next to it, but it somehow got water inside, and I told my friends that the water was in my backpack as it started to slowly drip, and I turned around to pour out the water and they said, "There can't be that much water in it." Keep in mind that the teacher is explaining something, so the class is mainly quiet. I start to pour out the water in the sink, and since it was full of water it was really fucking loud, and I just hear the teacher saying, "What are you doing?" as I see everyone just staring at me with my backpack over the sink with water pouring out of it. I don't think I ever turned as red as I did. Story 13. Our high school separated the boys and girls into separate classes for the first 2 years of high school. We don't have middle school in South Africa, so our high school career is from grade 8 to 12. This meant that there were 2 girls' classes and 2 boys' classes. The weird thing was that 3 of the 4 classes were taken by a fairly attractive, mid-20s, female math teacher, while 1 boys' class was taken by a 70-year-old man with a limp. I happened to be in the boys' class taken by this female teacher. Naturally, a room full of 20-plus horny 14-year-old boys led to a few embarrassing moments. The most awkwardly funny moment was when the teacher was bending over to help one student with a problem and the kid behind her thought it would be a good idea to pretend to grab her ass. At that moment she adjusted her stance and ended up leaning back into his outstretched hands. Both the student and teacher froze for a moment only for the teacher to slowly stand up and walk to her desk. The whole class stared at the student, who still had his hands out in front of himself, for a few seconds only to burst out laughing. The teacher and the students never uttered a word about it for the rest of the year. Story 14. This happened quite recently. Some kid was playing with his pen and splashed 6 people including himself, 7 counting the kid that stepped in it. It was on the ceiling, the floor and the fan. Story 15. When we were about 7, my twin brother and I were in the same class and having lunch with the rest of the class, and my brother was in a bad mood. The teacher on duty asked him to quiet down but he wouldn't. Then the head teacher came in to see what was going on. Frustrated, my brother threw an apple in the general direction of the head teacher. It missed, but when he threw it the whole class went silent except for a couple of people, including me, covering their mouths trying not to burst out laughing. In this school we were allowed to go home for lunch for some reason, and so my brother was not allowed to eat lunch at school, so he had to be taken to our grandfather's to have lunch. Our grandfather was not aware that this was a punishment and would give him ice cream and snacks when he was there, so what was meant to be a punishment turned out to be a reward. Story 16. So when I was in 5th grade, I had this mean teacher. MT equals mean teacher, me equals Titan, Harry Potter equals HP. One time MT forced us to go to one of those event thingies in the library. It was an HP event. This may sound crazy, but I don't like HP. I didn't want to go, but my MT made me. For the event, we had to guess the names of all the HP characters. I didn't know most of them, as usual. I went to class to ask, what if we know nothing about it? MT said, just guess. I'm like, okay, all I have to do is guess random names. While I was walking to the library my class was coming in, so I said, I don't have to do it. After I went into my classroom, MT asked, did you do it? I said, but recess is over. After a while of talking, MT said, in front of the whole class, who wants to take Titan to the library to finish HP week? I was so embarrassed, I cried on the way there. Once I finished I said to MT, that wasn't very nice of you. He was into the Mr. Nice Guy act and stuff, and he replied, I know. Another time, when we were putting our folders away, since I'm slower, he blurted out in front of the whole class, everyone look at Titan intensely, while he puts his folder away. I had a stressful day and cried afterward. He was like, oh, it's a joke. And I'm thinking to myself, bullshit, bullshit, bullshit.